Hello, Vortex viewers. The Society of the Snow, a movie directed by Spanish director Juan Antonio García Bayona, who originally made The Orphanage back in 2007. This movie is an adaptation of Pablo Viecchi's book of the same name. A plane with Uruguayan rugby players crashes into the Andes Mountains. What's interesting about this film straight off the bat is that it's in the Spanish language, and its cast is mainly composed of Uruguayan and Argentinian actors, most of them who are very much newcomers. Knowing the 1993 version called Alive very well, I was slightly skeptical, but also really excited to see a more updated version of this film and this story. I have read a few reviews which did allude to the fact is, why do we need a new telling, or why do we need this new version of this film? Hasn't the story already been told? But then why can some films be retold, and why do some films not have to be told? I do think that watching this film kind of answers that question. So for anyone wondering about why it's important to tell this story again, you just have to watch the film. So you have to, first of all, jump into the comparisons with the 1993 Ethan Hawke version, which was very much a Hollywood version of this story. The story that we have and the film we have now is a much more realistic reflection. Apparently, even the survivors are happy with this. The original film from 1993 adapted the storylines to make the movie more Hollywood and more compelling. For instance, a Lord of the Flies scenario splits the group early on. The film really decided to dramatize this and split the groups into two. This didn't sit well with the survivors, and they were never really happy with that version, that Hollywoodized version. And therefore, this suddenly becomes a very valid depiction where they just wanted to show it as it was. This version gets much more inside the characters' heads. You are put in this situation as a viewer as if you were on that plane and as if you were stranded on the top of a mountain. And I can't remember many films which do involve people stranded in that kind of scenario. It doesn't lend itself very well to a Hollywood movie because there's nothing that really happens on top of a mountain. You're stuck, it's cold, there's no food, there's no access to just the basic necessities of life. So it's not like being stuck on a desert island where you can go and find coconuts and eat fish. There's nothing up there. And one of the very early lines of the film is, "This is a beautiful place, but humans aren't supposed to be here. Nothing alive is supposed to be here." And I think this is very true. You're suddenly thrown into this world which we take for granted that really is not made for humans. So the overall premise that keeps you glued for the 2.5 hour running time is very much the fact that you want to know how these remaining few people who survived the plane crash are going to survive this very hostile environment. It's cold, it's freezing, the nights are even colder, there's no food, and those who have injuries inflicted by the crash are slowly losing consciousness. I think it really gets to the heart of us as human beings, not really able to really understand how a normal person could be put in this situation, but we all actually realize that maybe we can, and this is the horror, the dread that really this film can conjure up inside you and really keeps you watching even when you don't want to keep watching, because it is grueling and it is hard to watch. So the main thread, as we all know, is cannibalism. And cannibalism is something that you know is going to turn up somewhere in the film and you know is going to be hard to watch. But I think it is dealt with incredibly well. It's done sensitively. It doesn't become an overbearing factor, even though you know they are having to eat their fellow passengers to stay alive. I think this is filmed incredibly well. I think the torment and the stress that they're under and the fact that this is their only option is very well done. It does split the group to an extent, but I think the central role of Noma really ties this all together. He is a character who's very much against, and you can feel his trauma, his pain of having to eat a fellow passenger, who is played by Enzo Vogrincic. And this is played so beautifully and carefully and just done in such a way that it really draws you in. I think for the first sort of 10 minutes of the film, there's so many characters, you're trying to sort of hone down on someone, and then Noma suddenly comes out as being one of the main characters, and he's played so well by Enzo. I find his journey is compelling, and he is in fact the narrator throughout the film, and you're feeling his pain, and this really allows you in to the inner workings of the human mind being up on that mountain. This is what I think the film does incredibly well. Another thing I'd like to highlight is this sort of strong and beautiful balance between horror and the lighter aspects of life. While they're up there, they are obviously going through the most horrific time, but there's obviously times where they need a bit of lightness and humor, and this comes across really well in the film. In particular, there is a monologue by one of the characters, Javier Methol, who has just lost his wife from an avalanche. And he is talking about seeing his children again to the lead character, Noma. And this is heart-wrenching, but at the same time, it is optimistic and brings light into the whole story, and is a wonderful performance. And that is a monologue that I hope you spot, and for me really pulls this to another level, this whole movie to another level. You do realize after an hour or so they are creating their own society, almost like a tribe. I felt like it could have been called the Snow Tribe or the Mountain Tribe, where they're having to sort of live as human beings like we never would have to. And I find that really interesting. How would we survive? How would it change our values and things like that? And on the flip side, what they never do is become animals. They do not let the horrible situation eat them internally. They stay human, and their humanity remains. And I think this is the beauty of the film. Right at the end of the film, when they're finally getting back to normal life and humanity, you can see that there's a lot of sadness, but there's also a lot of pride, a lot of humor, and it's that kind of pride and humor that gets them through. Exactly as you'd imagine with a lot of 20-year-olds who have to go or endure something like this. So this film, the acting was stunning. The filming was done on locations in Spain, I believe, and it was absolutely phenomenal. You feel like you're there. You feel like you're up in the mountains. You had the big, long, wide shots, but you also had the very intimate shots, close-ups, and the shots where you were feeling very intimate and close to the characters you're watching. I do think this is a very valid piece of work, and one that didn't have to be made. But why do these films have to be made? If the director felt like he wanted to make it, or they wanted to make a Spanish version of this, which is absolutely valid, this film makes total sense. I do hope you enjoy it. I would love to hear your thoughts. Anyone who has seen any of the other documentaries or any of the other films before 1993, would love to hear your thoughts about the accuracy of this film. I'm not entirely sure, not having read the books, but I have read that the family are happy with this version, and I hope you enjoy watching it too. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. See you on the next one.